Have you ever been to a swim meet that felt more like organized chaos than an actual sporting event? Parents are frantically looking for their kids somewhere, and their kids are somewhere missing their races. And I think there's an announcer you can barely hear over the crowd. Well, as an Olympian who's been to hundreds of meets, both as an athlete and now helping teams run swim meets, I can tell you you're not alone. I'm going to show you the four critical elements that separate an average swim meet from one that parents and kids will be raving about all summer long. And the best part is, most meet directors are completely missing these key pieces I'm going to share with you. Now, you might be thinking, well, Charlie, running a swim meet, how complicated can it be? But here's the thing, we're not just talking about organizing the sporting event itself. We're talking about creating an experience that hosts hundreds of families over several hours at your venue. If you get this wrong, you got chaos. If you get it right, you're going to have parents thanking you and swimmers wanting to come back because it was so exciting. So, before we dive in, I want to share something that completely changed how I think about swim meet organization. Back when I was competing at the Olympics, I noticed something fascinating in how the best meets in the world were run. It wasn't about having the most volunteers or the fanciest equipment. It was about three simple principles that created an incredible experience for everyone. I'm going to share these three principles with you today, along with a bonus fourth that will transform how you think about running your swim meets. So let's dive into these four key elements, these key principles that will transform your swim meet from chaos into clockwork. Here we go. Number one, the power of an effective announcer. You know what's interesting? Most people completely underestimate how important an announcer is to the success of a swim meet. Think about your last great event you attended. Chances are there was a clear, engaging voice guiding you through that experience. Maybe it was a sporting event, maybe a concert, maybe a seminar. And here's why this matters so much: your announcer isn't just someone reading names and events, they're the conductor of the symphony. They can control the cadence of the swim meet, the speed of the events, and most importantly, they're your direct line of communication to hundreds of families sitting at the pool wondering what's going on. Let me share a quick story. At one of our recent meets, we had a last minute change in announcers. Now, the replacement was, let's just say, less than enthusiastic. And within an hour, the meet was running behind. Parents were confused. The announcer was very timid over the loudspeaker, and people couldn't exactly tell what events were coming up and what was going on. The energy on the pool deck was just not that exciting. In fact, it was like watching paint dry. And finally, the announcer needs to establish authority with his or her voice. This is the voice everyone hears over the loudspeaker. You need to be able to maintain authority and the flow and energy of the swim meet. Number two, do not use a clerk of course. Now, this next point here, no clerk of course, might sound controversial, but hear me out. Your swim meet should not have a clerk of course. Yes, you're hearing that correctly. No clerk of course, or what some teams might call a bullpen. Now, I know this might sound counterintuitive, but here's why. Having a clerk of course or a bullpen has evolved into something it was never meant to be. Instead of helping the meet run efficiently, it's become a crutch that actually slows things down. So think about it. We've all seen these well meaning parents running around the pool deck, corralling kids, shouting names, and really just creating more chaos than order. They're kind of a part of the goat rodeo. This over engineered process isn't just inefficient, it's teaching our swimmers the wrong lessons about responsibility and ownership in their swimming. So instead, what you need to do is have a clear communication system directed to the swimmers, yes, even the six and unders, so that they know when to report behind the blocks. You need a small team, one to two people behind the blocks helping guide the next heat. Now, their job is to simply ensure the next heat has every lane filled. And if not, then fill every lane by either combining the following heats or they're combining events. That's it. And then finally, they need to be focused on teaching swimmers to be responsible for their own swimming. You see, teaching swimmers how to show up on time for their races is not the job of the clerk, of course, it's the job of the swimmer. Teaching ownership over your own racing is a key lesson for the sport of swimming, and each swimmer needs to learn that lesson. So, Helicopter parents rejoice. You don't have to do clerk of course anymore. You need to be teaching this ownership lesson to the parents. No clerk of course, no bullpen. If you teach 6-year-old swimmers how to be responsible for their own racing, they will take ownership. And it's a principle and a lesson that they enjoy. The result here: faster swim meets, more responsible athletes, and less chaos on the pool deck. Number three, the time management revolution. Here's something that might blow your mind. You need to have both a start time for your swim meet and an end time for your swim meet, and actually stick to them. It's a revolutionary concept, I know, right? But here's the reality: swim meets are notorious for having a start time and then who knows when they're going to end. This uncertainty is a huge disservice to your families who give up their entire day to be there. And often they're helping to run the meet for you. So here's the hard truth: if you're running a 4-hour swim meet, you need to cut it in half. If you're running a 3-hour swim meet, you need to reduce it by an hour. 2 hours for 150 to 200 swimmers is plenty of time if you're running things efficiently. So here are some key points for time management. You need to be crystal clear about when warm up time is versus the meet start time. And then you need to start exactly when you say you're going to start. See, these parents who left work early to get there or getting from the house to the pool are going to appreciate and thank you for this responsibility. You need to have a planned in time and work backwards to make it happen. And you need to communicate these times clearly to all participants and remind them on a regular basis throughout the swim meet. Now, lastly, we know that inclement weather can often change a timeline on a swim meet pretty quickly. So, no one likes a storm delay primarily because it creates uncertainty. Is the meet delayed? For how long? Will we have to come back tomorrow to finish? What about the next day? Who knows? So, having a clear rule established, we call it the red zone, green zone rule. Take a swim meet with 50 events. For example, anytime prior to concluding the first 25 events, you're in the red zone and the meet is not yet official. Once you have started event 26, you are now ding ding in the green zone and the meet can be concluded at any time and be considered official. That way, if you reach a storm delay when you're in the green zone, you can confidently conclude the meet, eliminating the uncertainty of when that meet will continue. So don't leave the parents in the lurch, waiting in their cars in the parking lot. Use and apply the red zone, green zone rule. And number four, our bonus, the zero dead time rule. This is our secret sauce here, and we're going to share it freely with you. So, for running an incredibly efficient swim meet, here's the secret: there should never be any dead time between races. If the pool is empty, you can see that there's dead time. The pool should never be empty when there's 200 families there for a swim meet. Think about it. You have 200 families, they're giving their time and energy to be a part of this event. Why would we make them stare at an empty pool for 30 to 90 seconds between each and every race? This is a recipe for boredom and disaster. So here's how to eliminate dead time. Using either flyover starts or top of the block starts with either starting technique, this means having the next heat ready on the blocks as the current heat is finishing in the water. Then you need to train your starter and your officials to maintain a brisk but safe pace and create clear procedures for heat and event transitions. So in flyover starts, the race is concluded and they're in the water, waiting to exit the water, and the next heat begins diving off the block. This is a more advanced technique. So we also use the top of the block starts, which means as the heat is finishing, they exit the water, but the next heat is already on the blocks so that as soon as those last swimmers exit the water, the next heat will take their marks. So whichever technique, if you do this, the difference between 30 seconds of dead time and no dead time will usually save you about an hour in the run time of your meet. That's right. For an average meet of about 120 heats, your savings is just around an hour of time simply by eliminating these small gaps between races. Let's wrap this up with something crucial to remember. You're not just running a swim meet, you're creating a live event experience for hundreds of families, moms and dads, and boys and girls. And when you implement these four elements, a great announcer, no clerk of course, strict time management, and eliminating the dead time, you're not just making the meet more efficient, you're transforming it into an event that people will enjoy and they will come back too. Because remember, the goal isn't just to survive the swim meet, as people tend to say, it's to create an environment where swimmers can focus on the sport, parents can actually enjoy watching their kids compete, and everyone leaves feeling like it was time well spent for their family. Well, now that you understand these core principles, the next step is you need to get to implementing them. Start one at a time. My recommendation, start with that great announcer. That alone, I promise, is going to transform your swim meet. So I've got to ask, I want to know, what's a swim meet principle or secret that you know of that makes for a great experience? I'd love to hear them, and I'll see you at the pool.